Well, hello and welcome to County Connection. I'm Dawnafe Whitesinger, Navajo County Supervisor from District 5. We are in the great season of summer, and with summer comes recreation in our beautiful region, and with recreating, certainly lots of things come with recreating, and one of those things can be fire. And so today we're talking a little bit about the fire season, and we have two guests here today, and I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. One is Navajo County Emergency Management and Preparedness Director. I'm looking at my notes just so I get that right, Mary Springer. And then we also have Deputy Director Catrina Jenkins. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Oh, we're thrilled to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, sure. So before we get started, we always start with having individuals introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what it is you do, how long you've been in the region, and maybe how long you've been doing what you do. So we'll start with Catrina.
I've been with Navajo County for 15 years now. For 10 of those years, I've been with emergency management. So we've done everything from winter storms to wildfires and everything else. So it's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you, Catrina.
And,
Mary.
And I've been with the county 12 years, a little over 12 years, and 4 of those in emergency management. And like Catrina said, you know, we kind of, if we're not preparing for something or working on mitigation plans, like now we're in fire season, and so we're holding our breath. But we try and inform the communities, let them know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And, you know, right now it's critical that we get the message out as far as what you can do in the summertime that keeps the whole community safe.
Well, certainly, you know, and I appreciate that and know that your background is pretty comprehensive, not only in the fire area, but in just emergency preparedness as a whole. So when we're talking about recreating and we're talking about transitioning into summer, what are some of those big things that you, as a person who works in emergency preparedness, would be concerned about?
We're in the summer season, we're always concerned about people coming up and doing things that may spark a wildfire. And we work with our regional partners on getting public service messages out there and doing the best that we can, going to the community events and educating the folks that live here and the folks that come up and visit.
So you would think fire would be one of the top concerns. So when we're talking about fire, what would someone from the public do to, I guess, help mitigate or not bring on, I guess, a wildfire? What are the behaviors that they should entail?
So our citizens have the best defense ever, and that's by making a defensible space around their home, clearing out yard debris, moving their wood piles away from their home, making sure to check under eaves and decks for any loose debris, such as leaves or pine needles, and then just making sure that anything that could burn is actually just moved away from the home. Another thing is making sure that the shrubs are leveled down, trees are trimmed up, the lower tree branches are trimmed up. There's a lot of great information out there. So firewise.org is a great website that has a lot of information about defensible space.
Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect example. Certainly, you know, a lot of us live within the region, and how do we protect our homes, but not only to protect our homes, but for the public safety of our neighbors and so forth, to make sure that we're doing our part in allowing, I guess, safer fires to come through the community. What would be something else that community members could do? And I think of people who come out and recreate and they're going camping. What would that look like?
What they need to do is make sure they bring enough supplies with them or take enough supplies. We talk about water for drinking, but they also, if they're going to have a campfire in non-restriction areas or in a designated campground, they need to make sure and be responsible that that fire is completely out before they leave. That's one of the things that we find. People go camping, and it doesn't matter whether you're from the valley or from up here, they go camping And when they leave, Monday morning, we start getting reports from the Forest Service of smoke. And that what happens is the campfire, they may have thought it was out, but the rocks and the dirt get really superheated and it comes back. And so making sure that campfire is completely dead before you leave. That's probably one of the biggest things during the summer.
Our favorite motto is, if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave, because then you'll know it has a chance to reignite.
And that's very true. You know, how many times have we gone recreating, camping, fishing, whatever it is, going out to roast marshmallows and starting a fire and making sure that we fill those, I guess, designated fire areas with water, stirring them, feeling, hand to the touch, and all those kinds of things. And we'll talk a little bit about stage 2 fire restrictions here soon, and that kind of ties to this conversation. But when we look at our region, are there particular areas that are more prone, and I guess, you know, if we're looking at Navajo County, that are more prone to wildfire?
In this time of year, with the monsoons, we get what's called high base thunderstorms, and that produces lightning. So in addition to campers not completely extinguishing the campfire, lightning also plays a role. So you never know where Mother Nature is going to hit. And if it hits into an area that hasn't been cleaned up, you know, a lot of heavy pine needle on the forest floor, or ladder fuels that can get up into the pines, that's where we see problems, because something can ignite and it can fester for a while and smolder, and then all of a sudden you see the smoke, and you know, that's where we get a little nervous when you get hot, dry weather, very low humidity, and whether it's a campfire left or lightning hits, that could spell trouble.
And really anywhere this time of year, we've got roadside fires from dragging chains all along State Route 77, State Route 377. You can see the burn marks all the way up to Holbrook. So it's not just in the forest. There's grasses and everything else that'll burn too.
And I think that's really true, because sometimes we just think of wildfire specifically in forested areas, but we have a lot of grassland areas and shrubbery. So being conscientious of what that looks like. And certainly this past week I had that experience of driving up to Holbrook and seeing, what was it, 13? Was that
15.
15. Yeah. 15 small fires started by a chain dragging. So when we talk about our behaviors, I guess, and we've gotten so used to having conversations, or at least we hope that we've gotten used to having conversations about wildfire and being conscientious residents and being responsible residents who live in such a region, and how we can help mitigate future wildfires or to support our neighbors in the event of, you know, whatever might that look like. But so one, putting out the fire, making sure the fire is completely out, preparing our homes, and making sure that we've done our part in cutting the shrubs, or, you know, what is it, raking out the pine needles and all of those kinds of things. Lots of work to be done, but important work. Are there any other elements?
Well, fire-wise, and Catrina mentioned that, we are really trying to get out into the community and help different community sections, whether it's Pinedale Clay Springs, Heber Everguard, Pine Top, Lakeside, Snowflake, really help them understand why Firewise is a good thing, and how doing it by a community effort really makes for an impact. You know, we really want responsible homeowners to do those things and clean the litter up and trim trees. But can you imagine the impact it makes when you have the whole community do that? And so we're partnering with the Arizona State Forester and the Forest Service, and we're working with the communities. I know Chief Morgan up in Pine Top, he's got a great homeowners group. We've made some inroads in Heber Overguard and over in Pinedale Clay Springs, and we're really hoping to move that forward and get more communities involved.
Great. Well, thank you so much, ladies. We're going to take a short break here for a moment, and when we come back, we're going to talk about, first we've started talking about, well, what is what are the possibilities of danger or risk, and how do we help mitigate that in our communities? But where are we at? And we'll be talking about stage 1 fire restriction. So thank you, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Navajo County Connection. We have our expert panels with us still. We have Mary Springer and Catrina Jenkins, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about stage 1 fire restriction. One of the things that we had a discussion recently at the Navajo County Board of Supervisors was about a particular panel, I guess, or a coordination group. And Mary, if you could tell us a little bit about that coordination group, the White Mountain Fire Restriction Coordination Group, and what they do and how it was created.
Sure. About 4 years, a little more than 4 years ago, every agency, when fire season came about, everybody did kind of their own thing. The county, Navajo County, entered into a restriction if things got hot and dry and severe, but it was an all or nothing venture. So you couldn't have any kind of fires at all. Mm-hmm. So this group, Forest Service, State Forestry, Navajo and Apache County, the local cities and towns, local fire districts, all got together and discussed, what do the fire restrictions look like? What should they be? And so we went through a huge revision process of the restrictions. And so instead of the all or nothing rule, we actually went into the stages similar to what the Forest Service has. And so every year now, when right before fire season really gets going, this group meets on a teleconference every week. And we talk about the conditions, we talk about the resources available, what fires we may have seen over the past week. And really what we're doing is trying to put some science into when should we go into fire restrictions if it's necessary. So it's done with a credible ask instead of just a feeling. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we try and do, and we take that to our respective jurisdictions. So like I said, for the past 4 years we've done it as a coordinated effort, and I think it's really worked out for the region.
I do too, and that's why I'm trying to bring it to light in a sense, because I think it's an important partnership. When we talk about our region in this particular time of year, it takes a lot of efforts and a lot of agencies who come together. If we're looking at last year and the wildfire that we had, many agencies were part of helping support that fire and putting the fire out. But when we look at developing conversations and making sure that we're all on the same page, all of those things are really important. So this group, this organization, and having that partnership is really valuable. And it kind of leads to, well, now where are we? Out of those discussions, recently it came to the Board of Supervisors to move into stage 1 fire restriction. And so when we talk about stage 1, one, how did we get there, and having that conversation of yes, we need to be in stage 1. And then the second question would be, well, what is stage 1 fire restriction?
We started, as Mary said, coordinating with all of our partners, and it was decided on our weekly phone conversation that it was time to move into stage 1 fire restrictions. This week, everybody, as of this morning, as of Friday the 16th, 8 o'clock, all of the partners throughout the region are all in fire restrictions, stage 1 fire restrictions. We do that for a couple of reasons. One is it's less confusing for our citizens and our visitors. Whereas in the past, like Mary said, some people were doing different things, and you could have a fire on one side of the street but not on the other, so now we're all in together. So it really helps that coordination and that communication piece for us.
And with stage 1 fire restrictions, really the difference between being in restrictions and not in stage 1 is having your barbecues and campfires in a designated area, whether it's in a backyard in your barbecue pit or whether it's at an improved campground. in one of the campfire rings. That's the big difference for campfires. You can still use charcoal, you can use propane, but you have to have it in an area that's designated for that and clear of any debris for at least 3 feet. Smoking, you want to either do it in your vehicle, in an enclosed area, or an area that is designated for smoking. And if you do step out of your vehicle, you have to do it in an area that's clear of any debris, any litter, any weeds, and absolutely no pitch and cigarette butts out your window as you're driving up the road.
So when we look at, I guess, stage 1, it's specific to a designated area. So you can still have a fire, you can still roast your marshmallows, you can still barbecue, but it has to be in a designated area. You can't create a little makeshift fire or go off the beaten trail and create a fire.
Right.
No, and burn permits are suspended during this time. They're not canceled, but they're suspended. So there's no open burning, so there's no burning of ditches or having a makeshift campfire where you're doing cattle branding, that kind of thing.
Oh,
And we're talking for such a short period of time when we go into restrictions. Usually it's 2 to 3 weeks, but that's when the highest fire danger is.
So these restrictions, who does it apply to?
Everybody.
Everybody.
Everybody that comes to Navajo County or lives in Navajo County, these restrictions are applied to. And it's the best thing to do is to know before you go, because different forests have different levels of fire restrictions right now. So Coconino, Tonto, Apache Sitgreaves may be in different levels of restrictions, whether it's stage 1 or stage 2. So there's a great website to go to, and it's firerestrictions.us. And you can click on an interactive map and find out exactly what's going on for where you want to go visit.
Oh, great.
And talking to Candy Lupi from White Mountain Apache BIA, she said White Mountain Apache is always in stage 1 because they restrict campfires to designated areas only. So they're always in stage 1. And one other thing, fireworks. We know that people have them for sale up here. It's a big thing over the 4th of July. But when we're in stage 1, you can't use them. You can still buy them, but you can't light them off. And each jurisdiction is different. Navajo County, the board has approved for all unincorporated areas of the county. So they, like Catrina said, they do need to check with the individual jurisdictions. But commercial fireworks are governed by a different ordinance in the county. And that they work with the sheriff and the local fire departments to make sure it's safe to do that.
And going back, I guess, to that question of jurisdiction or where you can have a designated fire. So when we talk about personal and private property, does that also apply as well?
Yes and no. So we do ask that our citizens that have private property do follow the safest rules that apply. Make sure that the area is clear around it, because smoke does get reported all of the time. So they'll be getting a visit from the fire department or law enforcement if they are burning and it hasn't been reported. So it's just the best practice to make sure that you're doing it and that it's completely barren. 3 feet around is the safest bet. But you can have a campfire or a burn in your backyard as long as it's within reasonable. About a 2 feet fire is as high as you want to go, or less.
And people, if they do reckless burning at any time, they're responsible. And we've had different instances of people dumping their fireplace ash out in the yard thinking it'll dry or cool, and starting a 300-acre blaze. So, people need to be responsible no matter whether they're doing it at a campground or in their backyard. We've had people light their porches on fire because they walked away from an open burn out of their barbecue. So people just need to be very careful and responsible.
In playing with fire, I think our parents have always told us, don't play with matches, It's the same kind of concept, you don't want to, and not that people are playing with fire, but anytime a fire is started, you have to make the assumption that you have to watch that fire. You have to be responsible with that fire. You can't make assumptions that the fire is going to stay wherever it is that you started that particular fire.
Exactly.
Yeah. And growing up, certainly I've had those experiences, and even the coals on the front porch. I think I was 19, and I left some hot coals on our front porch and started a little fire. And so that was a good learning opportunity for me, certainly, and something that I will never forget, and why it's so important to make sure that your coals are cold, and that it's completely put out.
Yeah.
So, and thinking about, I guess, fire preparedness and thinking about getting the community more aware, are there any other comments or suggestions or ways that information that you feel like could help the public?
In July 22nd, Pinetop, Pinetop Fire, in partnership with the communities in Pinetop Lakeside, will be holding their annual Firewise Day. And I would tell people to go on the Pinetop website and see what times that event is going to hold. The first year that they did it, they had about 300 people, and they had it at the fire station on Buck Springs Road. Second year, they had 600 people.
Wow.
And same place, and they just outgrew the fire station. So I think they're going to have it at Blue Ridge High School, but I don't know if that's confirmed. So that's why I say go to their website, check it out, but it's July 22nd. It's a great event, and it's a place where people can get all kinds of information about being firewise, the types of vegetation to plant around your houses, even the bark beetle. I thought that was interesting last year.
Right.
They actually had examples of what does a bark beetle look like, which I thought it was this huge beetle. It's actually this tiny little insect. So great place to go to get information.
Some other places to get information. Reading, Navajo County is our alert system. So if we do end up having a major incident with a fire, or even during winter year-round, this system is available. It's easy to sign up. If you go to the Navajo County website, and on the home page at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a link to our registration. You'll get notified of stuff that is specific to Navajo County. And you can choose how to be notified, whether it's by phone, text, or email. And it can be a landline or a cell phone. So Ready Navajo County is our emergency alert system. We also have social media, and 311info.net is our Northeastern Arizona public information site. So we share that with Apache County, and so that's very specific for this region as well.
And if you dial 311 from your landline or your cell phone, you'll reach the recorded message line. You have an option to go to Navajo or Apache County. The first selection you have, once you've done that, you can get fire information from the Forest Service. You can also get health-related information from Navajo County or Apache County Public Health. And then we also have an option for emergency management. So that's another place you can get information, and it's recorded.
Wow, we have lots of places where we can get information and educate ourselves. And certainly if we're new to the region, I think it would be beneficial for us to attend that fair and just to, get familiar with people who are in the community.
Exactly.
And the idea of what it means to live and recreate in the community. And if we're looking for information, there are lots of places for us to go to make sure that we're educated and preparing ourselves. Not only in, our hope is that we stay in stage 1 fire restriction and we're not mobilized to, the very severe in evacuating our communities. And so keeping aware and being prepared and knowing our responsibilities around fire is all part of that. And I can see how the community has vetted together and making sure that we're more educated and that we have more people who are invested in educating us, teaching us about that and why it's so important. So ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate that. And thank you for joining us on Navajo County Connection, and we'll see you next time.